obvious to me, and being the number one Lucid skeptic on the internet, I'm going to say
Warren Redlich is the self-proclaimed #1 Lucid skeptic on the internet, and we thought, let's go through all of his main arguments as to why Lucid is allegedly a fraud. As an investor, it's important to reflect whether your investing thesis is still correct or not. So this video is particularly valuable for long-term Lucid shareholders and those interested in investing to see another perspective. To be fair, we also agree with 2 of his points, but overall, we think the information he provided about Lucid is inaccurate. Let us know whether you agree with us. We will reply to every comment as usual. And at the end of the video, we will share 2 potential big red flags about Lucid that we are looking out for. If you are curious what those red flags are, watch until the end. It's not another delay or that Lucid will not sell any cars.
And no Q&A. This is a tradition with Lucid Motors. They don't take questions from analysts or journalists or investors.
Warren has a good point here, but he doesn't mention that Rawlinson is often in the media and asked there. Also, Rawlinson answered in-depth questions by analysts in the past in separate events. Also, you can find several long 40-minute interviews by retail investors about Lucid on YouTube. Lastly, there are not many analysts covering Lucid yet. You can Google Lucid analyst ratings and you won't find much. Lucid obviously doesn't get the same level of attention as an established player like Tesla. Over time, and after Lucid delivers its first car, there will be more interest in the company and also more analysts asking questions and doing research to come up with price targets.
Key detail that we picked up there was apparently that assumes there will be minimal redemptions from the Churchill shareholders. That was sort of new. I haven't heard that before. Apparently there's some option for some Churchill shareholders to, quote, redeem their shares.
In general, there's no point in redeeming a SPAC share when it trades over $10 because this is what you would get if we were to redeem. So Warren is suggesting that there are investors who would prefer $10 over $25. You never know, but the results showed that this wasn't an issue, as 98% of the votes were in favor of the transaction and all proposals received overwhelming support. Yes, the SPAC deal can be risky, especially when you rely on retail investors casting their vote, but it all worked out for Lucid.
10,000 reservations. Well, they had 10,000 reservations in June 23rd, and we're now 3 weeks out and you haven't hit 11,000 reservations. And you go back to February of 2021, they had 7,500 reservations. So from February to mid-July, they've added about 2,500 reservations, which is just not a lot. I don't think that's even 20 reservations a day. And you compare it to like Cybertruck, which has over 1 million reservations.
It's an apples to oranges comparison. It does not make sense to compare the reservation numbers of Lucid, an EV company in the early stages, to an established brand like Tesla. And if you want to compare the reservation numbers of Tesla to Lucid, then let's look at Tesla Model S reservations in 2012 when Tesla was still a no-name brand, just like Lucid is today.
The company is top-heavy. In the past, they had a slide deck with 19 people in suits on the slide deck. Now there's up to 20 people on the slide deck. It's crazy, too much. Just build a car. Get a car out there. Show us you can actually do it. Impress us. Deliver something that customers want.
It's true that a typical software startup shouldn't be top heavy. Facebook, Amazon, Google, and others were basically established by a very small team. But we're talking about a car company, an industrial startup with 2,500 employees. It makes sense to have a larger leadership team here. And if you look at it closely, there are only 2 C-level executives currently, Rawlinson and Sherry House, the CFO, who joined Lucid in May. The other people are of the rank of vice president or lower, and these people in suits are all experienced in the automotive world. Nearly 40% worked at Tesla before, so they already had the experience of scaling.
We're on track for production and deliveries, it sounds like, in the second half of 2021. But the 577 vehicles that they said they were going to deliver in the second half of 21, which is already a drop from the 6,000 they were supposed to deliver in 2020 before, it sounds like that 577 goal is gone. And they're just hoping to produce and deliver vehicles, 2 or 3, by the end of this year.
As Tesla investors, we know that delays are common. Autonomous driving and the Tesla Semi are regularly delayed. We don't mind it if it means that the products get better. Same holds true for Lucid. It's also not necessary for Rawlinson to repeat the number 577 in each interview. Obviously, it's not a big number, so it's understandable that he doesn't emphasize it. However, in the latest Bloomberg article, Rawlinson mentioned that they are on track, specifically mentioning the targeted amount.
We're in the late stages of crash testing. We're doing the EPA testing. Well, where are you in that? When is this going to finish? When is it going to be ready? When are we going to see results? No timelines. No, it's going to be done by this point. Nothing.
Lucid is not in charge of the EPA testing timeline. If they were, it wouldn't be objective. And car safety should be the most important aspect of any car company, so they will crash test it as long as necessary. It's not a smart move to create deadlines and put time pressure on car safety.
Everything that Peter Rawlinson does, everything that Lucid Motors does screams to me fraud, fraud, fraud. That's what I hear, that's what I see. Until you show me, you show me. Right now it sounds like 0 deliveries in 2021.
Warren's main argument in this video is that Lucid will not produce any car in 2021. So far, Lucid has produced 89 prototype cars, and it should be obvious that with a $700 million purpose-built EV factory with a yearly production capacity of 34,000 cars, they should be able to produce 577 cars in the second half of 2021.
There's some references in some places to Lucid Motors pursuing an energy storage business. When he says their energy storage business is on track, if you look at their financials that they've projected out to like 2030, I don't see any energy storage sales.
That's a good point by Warren, but we would argue that Lucid's battery storage sales are not included in the sales projections because Lucid is actually projecting realistic numbers. Right now, their battery storage division is still in development and no sales are in sight, so they took a conservative approach when doing their projections. But we shouldn't disregard the potential either, so it makes sense for Rawlinson to mention future opportunities, in particular when taking into account that Lucid is backed by Saudi Arabia.
I do think those numbers are also suspect because if you go back to the February slide deck for the CCID proposed merger, they talked about phase 2 was currently being implemented that would get them up to 90,000 vehicles a year, and that phase 1 was already ready for 34,000 vehicles a year. So all of a sudden you need all this additional investment to get you to 53,000 vehicles a year capacity by the end of 2023, when you were supposedly 5 months ago already implementing getting to 90,000 units. Those numbers don't add up.
Warren said that in the February slide deck, Lucid was working on the expansion of 90,000 cars per year capacity. Now, Lucid said that they will invest part of the additional funds from the CCIV merger to produce 53,000 cars. These numbers add up. Before you can get to 90,000, you'll have to reach 53,000. It's not a contradiction. If anything, it's now much clearer what is being targeted for the end of 2023.
We continue to expect our existing cash resources following the business combination will fund our planned operations at least through 2022.
That's another big one. I think that's a material change. My recollection, I can't find the video off the top of my head. I can't find it in the slide deck. But back in February, when they announced the Spac merger, the $4.4 billion was supposed to carry them well into 2023.
You say in the investor deck that you're going to spend about $10 billion over the course of the next 4 years. How are you going to get those additional funds?
Well, we've already brought in $4.5 billion from the Churchill capital from the SPAC. That gives us a absolute clear runway well into 2023.
And they've changed the language, and now the Spac merger, the $4.4 billion, will carry them to the end of 2022. So they're going to need to raise money. They're going to need to bring in additional capital somehow.
We all know that Lucid will need considerably more capital in the coming years. It's a car manufacturer after all. Warren made a good point that the language changed from well into 2023 to end of 2022, but again, it's not a red flag. What matters is the EV technology, and not whether Lucid delays its car production or whether they need a new investment 3 months earlier. The same arguments were made by people betting against Tesla, which is infamous for its delays. The good news is that Lucid is backed by the Saudi Arabian PIF fund, which just recently increased their Lucid investment in the Spac merger. It's confirmed that they will continue to invest in Lucid in the coming 5 years. We even made a deep dive video about this.
Aircraft-inspired seat package, which we'll introduce to the market in the future. We plan to bring that in the next few years. And this will be fantastic for the China market in particular, we believe.
Lucid has been pushing this aircraft-inspired rear seat since as far back as 2017 and maybe longer. How long? And now they're saying it's a few years away? It's already over 4 years since you told us you were going to have these spectacular seats in the rear of the car. And I just asked this of people who actually believe in Lucid Motors. How long can they lie to you?
We agree with Warren on this point. Clearly, the Backseat concept was mainly used to impress potential investors, and that worked. Lucid impressed the Saudis with the Lucid Air prototype, and they invested over $1.3 billion in 2018. Was the Backseat concept ever going to be mass-produced for the Lucid Air in Western markets? We can doubt that, since in Western countries, the car owners usually drive their cars as well. In China and Arabic countries, however, it's more common to have drivers for wealthy people. Still, it's unfortunate that the concept wasn't offered with the limited Lucid Air Dream Edition. By the way, if you enjoy non-hype Lucid content for long-term investors, feel free to like this video. YouTube will then suggest to you our future Lucid research videos. Thank you.
He gives credit to Tesla that Tesla is the leader in the market. He says that that's why Tesla has such a high market value. Of course, there's a lot more reasons. This is what I didn't like about that. Is on the one hand, he's complimenting Tesla by saying, well, they're more efficient, and that's why they have a higher market cap. No, there's a lot of reasons why Tesla has a high market cap, and miles per kilowatt hour is a fairly small one. I mean, yes, they have more range than other EVs, but there's so much more going on with Tesla. And it's really about the growth that is the big driver. It's the growth, it's the prospect of FSD, a lot of different reasons why Tesla is moving. The profitability, there's so many different factors in Tesla's favor. And to limit it to just say this, no. It's a factor, it is an advantage Tesla has, but there's a lot more there. Rawlinson knows that.
Here we can also agree with Warren. Tesla is much more than an EV company. The FSD potential of Tesla alone is difficult to grasp. We actually made a deep dive comparison between Lucid and Tesla, and obviously Lucid is not the next Tesla. But efficiency is the most important metric for EVs. After all, batteries are the biggest cost drivers when building an EV. The car manufacturer with the best efficiency will likely also be the one that will be able to produce a $25,000 EV or license the technology to do so.
This is another one of those moments like the energy storage moment. You're talking about that something that's not even in your financials, saying that you're going to get involved in electric vertical and takeoff and landing jets, marine applications, agriculture, industrial machinery. Just deliver a car. Then none of this is in your financials. None of this is part of the actual business model for Lucid Motors going forward for the next 10 years. Why are you making these claims that if you actually had that kind of technology that somebody else wanted, why isn't it already licensed? Why isn't somebody already using it? You're just talking.
The simple reason why it's not included in the financials is because you cannot plan independently that you will have a contract with a major car manufacturer such as Toyota at the end of 2021. You always need two parties for such an agreement, so the reason why they don't include this in their financials is just to be conservative. They don't have an agreement yet, so they don't include anything in their projections. Tesla also doesn't project into the future that they start licensing their technology from a specific point in time. Also, from a bargaining position, it's also better to start negotiating with another car manufacturer when Lucid delivered their first cars and the EV technology is objectively tested and proven. Most importantly, right now, Lucid with a $4.4 billion in the bank can easily pick the most favorable partner for them without any time pressure. While on the other hand, time pressure for established car companies with only basic or no EV technology is increasing over time.
Is the bigger vision of truly mass industrializing electrification. My vision is to design for true mass production, because that's what the world needs right now.
This irritated me because the talk doesn't match the walk. You're talking about mass production, but your projections going out to 2030 are you going to achieve 500,000 vehicles a year.
Again, Rawlinson is keen on supplying Lucid's battery technology to a car manufacturer capable of mass production such as Honda, Hyundai, or Toyota. Lucid's vision is not so much to become a mass producer themselves, but to become a mass licensor of their EV technology. Established mass car manufacturers are unlikely to license EV tech from future mass manufacturer Tesla, simply because Tesla will be their competition. Lucid, however, is a very small niche player that Toyota and others don't need to worry about. We don't think this year's Lucid delays and potential future delays are a red flag. Sure, the stock price would suffer in the short term when another delay is announced, but this is not why Lucid would fail as a business. The real red flag for Lucid would be if their official EPA rating would be significantly lower than 500 miles. After all, Lucid's high market value is based on Lucid having the most efficient EV technology in the world. This is what they can license, and this is what all major car manufacturers are lacking and need to have to reduce battery costs. The second potential red flag would be Saudi Arabia failing in its sustainability transition, or if they sold their stake stake in Lucid. Saudi Arabia's wealth fund, PIF, owns over 60% of Lucid, so any negative outlook for Saudi Arabia would have a negative impact on Lucid as well. In other words, when you bet on Lucid, you also bet on Saudi Arabia's successful transition from an oil industry to a more diversified economy. We at Grossack Research believe that Saudi Arabia can transform itself in the coming decade, similar to how the United Arab Emirates, and in particular Dubai, managed to do in the recent past. Saudi Arabia has the necessary funds to quickly transform under an autocratic but visionary leadership. It's not unlikely that Saudi Arabia will become an established automotive player in the world, just like China became one in a relatively short period of time. 10 years ago, nobody would have thought that China would become a leader in EVs. Now, it's not a crazy thought. The same can happen with Saudi Arabia and its major bet on Lucid. What do you think? If you're interested in learning more about Lucid and EV technology, feel free to leave a like, as that will tell us that we should produce further videos in the series. And if you're interested in Lucid, you may also enjoy our other videos in our Lucid playlist. Vielen Dank.